Welcome to the Krusty Fox and a new episode of Sex and the Shitty. This is the one with early career cameos from not one but two well-known actors, and Carrie achieving a legendarily bad look only finally surpassed when someone dug her up for the sequel series. Don't forget to stay tuned until the end of the video for last week's top comment and this week's question. As Carrie starts us off with a self-indulgent voiceover, we might as well examine this episode's title. It's called They Shoot Single People, Don't They? A pun on the name of a 1969 movie called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Which was presumably changed so as not to offend Sarah Jessica Parker. Both titles refer to an injured or suffering animal being put out of its misery, which makes what Carrie's actually saying in her voiceover all the more hilarious. She crows about how she and her besties are out clubbing, celebrating their simultaneous singledom. She claims this is rare, which is difficult to believe when the four of them put off or dispose of men with such breakneck speed that it's a wonder this celebration hasn't synced up along with their cycles. Samantha's dancing attracts the attention of the club's owner, William. Presumably he found it better by comparison than Miranda's awkward jigging, which makes her look like she's trying to conceal a prolapse. Carrie announces that she has to go home early, not to avoid tripping over Miranda's gizzard, but because she has a photo shoot in the morning. Stanford's new boyfriend, Nevin, has somehow managed to weasel her into the running order for New York Magazine's Single and Fabulous spread. That's right, it's that episode. Buckle up. Samantha, ever our flotation device in a torrent of egotistical ignorance, is the only one of them to justifiably laugh at Stanford having bagged yet another man with a stupid twee name. Apologies to the 5 Nevins still left in existence, but we're at the point now where I wouldn't be shocked if the writers named his next partner Amel. Unfortunately, one more drink turns into Carrie wandering home at dawn. Late for the photo shoot, she dashes down there propelled only by coffee, cigarettes, and I would imagine, based on that combo, enough farts to turn the studio into the towering inferno if she passes by an open flame. Carrie naively allows the photographer to snap away without any makeup or wardrobe intervention. Despite the non-existent attention to detail and the entire crew treating her like an extramarital pregnancy at a divinity college, she somehow fails to sense danger. Later, during a very 90s power walking session with Carrie and Charlotte, Miranda bumps into old flame Josh, who she reveals she faked it with. Charlotte comes out strongly in favour of fabricating the odd genital sneeze, casually and bleakly suggesting that it's at least better than sleeping alone. Grim, Charlotte. Grim. On the way home, Carrie stops for more cigarettes, telling the vendor to give her the usual, like she's the Anna Delvey of street kiosks. She looks up, and there's New York Magazine, with her unpainted, hungover mug adorning the cover, looking like she was at her second callback to play Gollum's wife. Carrie's horrified that this crime against decency is hanging next to Martha Stewart living, although I dare say by 2004 she'll feel a lot better about that comparison. The article's new title, Single and Fabulous, speaks to a level of pettiness most of us will only ever aspire to. As far as we see, Carrie delaying the photography team by a single hour inspired them to change the whole thing in an effort to ruin her image, dating prospects, and life. If nothing else, you've got to respect their commitment. At brunch with the ladies, Carrie decides that the best way to dodge her newfound fame is to yell about it in public while wearing a stupid bucket hat. Her mood immediately and visibly improves when she realises that the article's jabs about sad, forever unmarried women have caused her friends to suffer their own existential crises. Miranda reacts by allowing Josh to continue disappointing her foof, though her patience quickly wears thin. She goes for his jugular by revealing that she, and by extension every other woman he's been with, have faked their O's. To her surprise, Josh is game for her to school him on how to properly rock her world. Samantha dates William, despite him having a face like a yassified Gilbert Gottfried, RIP, and referring to them as a we right away. She's temporarily distracted by his offer of a summer in the Hamptons, but bizarrely implies that Carrie can gate crash it, which feels like ruining a perfectly nice picnic by inviting a hive full of killer bees. And Charlotte curb stomps feminism by bedding Tom, the out-of-work actor she apparently invites over to do male things in her apartment. These male things include such complex tasks as plugging a single cable into a VCR, so I really can't tell if Charlotte's just doing a bit or is genuinely as useless as a crocheted condom. Carrie quickly weaponizes these developments for her column, pondering whether women are faking their way through crap relationships rather than going alone. To distract herself from quitting smoking, as though that's her primary issue, Carrie decides to sit in on one of Charlotte's janitorial visits. Charlotte admits that she convinced Tom to abandon his plan to leave NYC, mostly so that she doesn't have to learn how to rewire a plug. Should make for some interesting wedding vows. On her way home, Carrie stops at the newsstand again because her resolve to quit smoking lasted about as long as a bottle of antibiotics in a brothel. The owner shoots her a sympathetic look when he realises that the twitchy blonde before him is the same one on the cover of New York, looking like the halfway point in a Faces of Meth collage. Being pitied by, quote, the man who sells me my Marlboro Lights is Carrie's line in the sand, because apparently service industry workers' opinions rank somewhere lower on her priority list than improving her credit score. She declares that nobody is going to decide her identity for her, and so glams up for a night on the town, a perfectly appropriate decision which is therefore destined to descend into chaos. She attends a party with Stanford, who she bluntly orders to break up with Nevin due to his involvement in the cover story. Stanford claims he can't because they're buying a timeshare in Sagaponack, a place I had to look up because it sounded to me like somewhere a chemical plant would discreetly pipe its toxic runoff. At a romantic restaurant, Samantha slowly realises that William has stood her up, and referring to them as a we was just to get her into bed. A compassionate and impressively confident busboy kisses and then offers to go home with her so that she won't be alone, but Samantha turns him down. Carrie's voiceover notes that this is because Samantha realises that it's sometimes better to be alone, but also feels the need to point out that the busboy is Pakistani, so I'll let you draw your own conclusions about the big racist elephant in the room. Back at the party, Carrie's off her nut on cranberry vodka and treating the men there with the same disdain that Ellen DeGeneres affords uncooperative celebrity guests. But when Bradley Cooper's Jake walks over to offer her a light, she reveals that her standards have reduced to single straight smoker. That's it, girl. You shoot for that moon. Back at Miss Hobbs' school for wayward peens, Josh's insecurity has turned Miranda's bedroom into a classroom. Sadly, Josh is flunking, which I mean literally and not as a description of a new position he's trying. Realising that he's never going to get it right, she rewards his futile efforts with one last little fake death. Unfortunately, there's nothing fake about Carrie's ongoing spiral, as proven by her accepting a ride in wasted Jake's Porsche. After she eats his face with enough suction to extract blackheads, Jake stops for a pack of smokes at a newsstand. Just as Carrie reassures herself that she's still young and hot, Jake mashes a copy of New York into the window with god-tier timing. And there she is in all her glory, looking about as young and hot as Iggy Pop's corpse. This causes her to realise that if she goes home with Jake after all, it'll be the first time she'd ever validated herself with sex. Presumably, the last 16 episodes worth of events continue to leak out of her ears as she marches home alone. Meanwhile, Tom and Charlotte fake their way to the end of their own road. She pretends that him deciding to leave the city after all means anything more to her than hiring a replacement. And he feigns reluctance to go when the reality is that their little arrangement is closer to modern slavery than he's probably comfortable with. The status quo continues to resume when Miranda goes back to ignoring Josh's calls and Samantha introduces William's face to the contents of her cocktail glass. As for Carrie, she waits out the shelf life of her issue of New York and embraces single life, drinking alone at a cafe where she's served by Matthew Morrison. Thankfully, he doesn't seize the opportunity to rap, and since it's 1999, it's a good 10 years too early for the Glee kids to come steaming in with a cover of I Am Woman. And for that matter, 13 years too early for Carrie to jump up and ruin a perfectly good Scissor Sisters song. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe for weekly uploads, and if you can, share this series with your friends, family, and underwhelming former sexual partners. Last week I asked you whether you agreed with Carrie's fairly loose definition of the term freak. Commenter Valerie said no, but thought Mitchell's dinner table fruit abuse was on the borderline. But who are we to judge? Let's all violate some fruit at our next dinner date and compare notes. Dibs on the melon. As for this week's question, were Miranda and Charlotte justified in their fakery, or should they both have been honest from the start? Answers in the comments below, and the best will make an appearance in the next installment. Either way, thanks for watching, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.